So what do you say we tackle the newest release here from Heaven Hill? This is their 2025 grain to glass bourbons and rye. So we have, as you can see, 3 whiskeys here in front of you, all being aged in Chinquapin Oak barrels. So that's going to offer up a little or slightly different profile than maybe some of us are used to. Kind of a quick, like, Cliff Notes version of that. And also, to make this video not 30 minutes long, that barrel is going to introduce what seems to be a little extra sweetness and maybe some spice kind of backbone to each of these whiskeys. So what we're going to do is we're going to tackle their straight bourbon, their wheated bourbon, and their rye whiskey. Again, each one of these are aged in Chinquapin Oak barrels, not finished in that. So you're going to get all of that introduction of that whiskey within that barrel. One other thing I will note on this is their attention to Heaven Hill working with the actual grain growers and how important that is for this series. So what I would do is I would highly recommend, I'll have it linked in the description of this video, is kind of the backstory of who it is they're working with and why each one of these grain to glass releases is extremely important to them. So I'll leave that to you. I'll link that again in the description below, and you can read more about the importance of what this grain to glass really means for not only the grain grower, but the buyer, and then us ultimately as the consumer. So with that being said, let's dive into this stuff. I'll give you a little idea here of what each one of these has to offer and kind of what you can expect. All right, so let's go ahead and first talk about their grain to glass, their straight bourbon whiskey. So we're going to tackle that, give you guys, again, a little idea of both the nose and palate on this. I'm going to try to do this a little bit quicker just to kind of give you an idea of what each one of these, both nose and palate, has to offer. So this is also coming in at 105 proof. They did note the entry proof of 107, so that's kind of nice to see in terms of there not being a huge difference from the entry proof to ultimately their barreling proof. Mash bill on this, little bit different. So 52 corn, 35% rye, 13% malted barley. So a little bit of a different mash bill that we're going to get from Heaven Hill, specifically for their kind of grain to glass. They are non-age stated, and the MSRP for each one of these is going to be approximately $130. So let's go ahead and kind of dive into the nose and see exactly what the first one, the straight bourbon whiskey, has to offer. So my very first thought is this really nice kind of, I'd say, like Honey Nut Cheerios kind of effect. A lot of vanilla, a lot of oak spice, baking spices. It's very almost fall-like. There's a little bit of this like sweet and savory kind of aspect to it on the nose. Yeah, beautiful nose so far. So, and you can see the color of these, absolutely beautiful. So I would imagine there's a little bit of age on these, but whatever is happening and where these are being stored, they're doing something within those barrels to create an absolutely beautiful, beautiful color. So, all right, let's go and dive into this and see what this one gives us. Cheers. The first thing I have to address with this is the mouthfeel, the texture. Very oily, very creamy, this beautiful oak spice, lots of like vanilla characteristics. Again, baking spice, really nice kind of oak that's there. Almost a little bit of a citrus feel to this. There's a little bit of a brightness that's there to this as well. But I'm still thinking, like I was getting with the nose, very much of this kind of Honey Nut Cheerios feel with a little bit of like extra spice. So beautiful, beautiful, bourbon, like right away. I love the texture, the richness of this that it has. Feels like maybe the spice is slightly elevated. I'm not picking up a major difference in terms of a flavor profile that's much different than what we typically get. However, the one thing I will say is there doesn't necessarily seem to be that quintessential Heaven Hill kind of profile. So maybe that barrel specifically is offsetting a little bit of what that normalcy that we get from Heaven Hill with some of that more like nutty character. I'm not getting as much of that. This feels a little bit different and really off profile from a Heaven Hill standpoint. But so far, beautiful whiskey. Love the texture. I think this thing may open up even a little bit more. Didn't add any water, but it would be very interesting to see ultimately maybe what water kind of does for this one. So hopefully you enjoy that. So let's go ahead and move on to their wheated bourbon. All right, so what can you expect from the Heaven Hill, the grain to glass, their straight bourbon, their wheated bourbon specifically? Again, aged just like all of them will be in Chinquapin barrels. Again, offering something hopefully a little bit unique for you guys. So similar to the straight bourbon whiskey, this wheated bourbon also comes in at 105 proof, barrel entry proof at 107. Mash bill similar to this, just reversing a couple things with now this being wheated. So it's 52% corn, 35% wheat, 13% malted barley. Again, non-age stated and MSRP of about 130 bucks. So let's dive into this one. This one kind of was starting to get ramped up a little bit more elevated the other night when I was kind of sitting down and taking some tasting notes. So I think we kind of slowly work our way up with some of these things. Yeah, on the nose, like right away, it has a much darker, deeper, richer like nose so far. This feels like it's just much more elevated than I was getting on the straight bourbon. This wheated bourbon just has a little extra level to it so far on the nose. Yeah, love the fruit layer. So you're getting a lot of this kind of like slightly fermented fruit, fruit cobbler kind of feel, plum, maybe even a little bit of like a purple grape, something like that. It's a very pronounced dark fruit type of feel to it. Also has this honey and like a bread dough. Like, I don't know if bread dough is something that an awful lot of people are familiar with, but it has that, again, wheated doughiness, but it has this almost like if the dough was fried, this richness. There's that cinnamon, nutmeg, like kind of sprinkled with some sugars that are there, all while having a lot of these dark fermented fruits, a little bit of that kind of dark grape kind of feel to it. Really beautiful nose. Like it's really, really nice. And what the Chinquapin barrels are doing specifically is tough. Without having this in just a regular oak barrel, you don't really know necessarily what that would be or what the difference is. But so far, beautiful nose on this. So let's dive into the palate and see exactly what their wheated bourbon is going to give us. Cheers. Man, love the dark fruit and spice. Almost think of this like spicy fruit jam, something along those lines. Honey, bread dough, that cinnamon sugar that I referenced on the nose before, all there on the palate for sure. It's much richer. Texture feels about the same. Mouthfeel, very similar. This is just kind of ramped up to another level. And that's one thing I've really noticed with a lot of, even specifically the Heaven Hill wheated bourbons. There's just something that's now kind of changing with that profile, and it feels like it's changed with this as well. So, I mean, it's that beautiful oak and spice and that fruit and that spicy jam kind of feel. That's an absolutely fantastic whiskey right there. And again, coming in at 105 proof, barrel entry proof again at 107. So unless it's jumping up a lot in proof, there's not a lot of water being added to this in order to kind of bring it back down to that 105 proof. So you're getting a really, really good quality wheated bourbon right there. So let's move on to their Heaven Hill, their grain to glass, their straight Kentucky rye whiskey. All right, so here we are. Last but not least, the Heaven Hill Grain to Glass Straight Kentucky Rye Whiskey. This one was one early on that I was very, very excited to kind of dive into. I think you'll see exactly why in a second, but what exactly does this one have to offer? So this one's coming in at 107 proof, barrel entry proof on this one, also 107 proof. So again, unless these things are skyrocketing in proof and then having to be watered down, we're getting these as close to barrel entry proof as possible, which is a great thing, which hopefully ultimately leads to a richer kind of flavor profile. Mash bill on this one, 63% rye, 24% corn, 13% malted barley. So again, a little bit different. Also aged in Chinquapin Oak barrels as well. Not age stated, and also MSRP of about 130 bucks. So, all right, let's dive into the nose and see what this one gives us. Oh man, so right away, here's one thing I would say. It feels right out of the gate much more of a rye drinker's rye. That rye spice, that barrel interaction that's there is very much in the forefront. There is some sweetness, but it is definitely letting you know that there is a rye grain present in this one. Again, you do get a little bit of that kind of like mint chocolate, but it's layered in there kind of underneath some of that rye grain spice. Yeah, it doesn't have that feel necessarily of what you get from a standard Kentucky rye. And again, maybe with the rye being ramped up a little bit and this not being just a barely legal rye of normally 51%, you've increased the rye here in this mash bill up to 63. And maybe that interaction with those Chinquapin barrels, maybe there's some interaction that again is adding to that extra kind of spicy characteristic that's there. Yeah, I think you're getting some of those like kind of black pepper notes, maybe even like a slight like clove note or something along those lines, all while still having this kind of like underlayer of that mint and chocolate that are there. So don't get fooled into just thinking this is necessarily just big, heavy, rich, earthy rye spice. There is some sweetness that is going to balance that out so far, at least on the nose. But more importantly, let's tackle the palate and see exactly what this one's going to give us. Cheers. Wow. So so very, very different from the nose. This has a much fruitier baking spice kind of profile. Still very like velvety. It's a creamy texture, not as necessarily as big of a rye spice on the palate as I was getting on the nose. All while still kind of feeling like a rye drinker's rye. There's something that's just so different about this, that kind of this ebb and flow of feeling like 1 second you're getting a lot of this rye drinker's rye. Then as it kind of sits on the palate, it shifts to a little bit more of this fruity rye with, I guess, less spice and more sweetness. And then you layer in some of the like brown sugar and honey sweetness that's there. It's a very interesting profile, and what that barrel interaction and that the Chinquapin is actually doing feels like it's changed what this kind of could be, or maybe what it would have been in just a standard, oak barrel. Yeah, I love the brown sugar, the dark fruit that's on this thing, a little bit of that mint chocolate, layered in more of that richer rye spice that's there. I mean, it's different. It's so enjoyable, sweet, savory. The texture of it is incredible. it just has, it has a lot to try to dissect and figure out exactly like what's going on. And as you can see, like these colors on these whiskeys are fantastic, incredible. I mean, this deep, rich, dark amber, almost as though they're finished in like a red wine cask. That not that they're not, but the color is giving you that impression. But man, I'll tell you what, overall, like even now, like as I talk a little bit, there feels like there's this layered in marshmallow, spearmint, oak, spice. It's kind of crazy in terms of what's happening with this thing. But overall, another beautiful rye whiskey. And each one of these in their own right is going to offer up something different and unique. And that's the fun part about the grain to glass lineup and them introducing something different each year. This is now just followed up from last year's release to again offer us something again different and unique, and coming from one of the big heritage distilleries that are out there. It doesn't surprise me that they would be the ones to be, you know, introducing us to something really as fantastic as these really are. So I think as you get these, you're going to really truly enjoy them for what they are. There's a difference factor that I really enjoy with each one of these. So let me know in the comments below, you know, did you have last year's release? Are you anticipating trying or buying all three, one of them, whatever that may be? Love to hear your feedback on each one of these, you know, individually or as a whole. Love the idea again behind everything that they're doing with this grain to glass. It's a really truly you know, unique, special type of thing that they're really highlighting as part of the brand. So with all that being said, thank you guys so much for tuning into another one of my videos and checking out the 2025 Heaven Hill Grain to Glass series review. If you'd like to follow me, you can on Facebook and Instagram, those places at My Bourbon Journey. If you'd like to help support the channel and become part of the Mash and Journey Whiskey Club, make sure you check out that Patreon link in the description below. That down there with a lot of other great things for you as well. So there we have it, Heaven Hill's 2025 Grain to Glass series review. Hopefully you enjoyed that. And as always, it's about the journey and not the destination. Cheers. We'll see you in the next video. Heaven Hill, you did a great job.
Get out the way, I've been feeling myself, I've been trying to keep it all on track. I could tell you took your time, I've been thumbing through your gram like that. Bring my energy back, girl, you're something like the sunlight. Girl, you're something like the sunshine.